Hey, Richard Bryce here, tennis hacker. In this video, I want to help you to develop a better quality slice backhand. Now, I haven't made many slice backhand videos before because my slice backhand was always my weapon. For as long as I can remember, I was just able to do whatever I wanted with it with my right hand. So I didn't necessarily feel like I'd ever learned anything about the slice backhand in order to impart good advice to people. But now that I've relearned to play left-handed and I've developed my left-handed slice into a wicked shot, I'm confident that the way I think about the slice can be beneficial for other people as well. So what I want to do in this video is kind of break down the anatomy of a slice backhand and kind of talk about some of the things that I think are important for people, because it's a shot that a lot of people don't necessarily hit very well, and I think there's a few key features. So hopefully you'll find the video helpful. If you do, it'd be great if you give me a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel before, much appreciated if you could do that as well. So the keys to hitting a good quality slice backhand are going to be very similar to the keys to hitting good quality other ground strokes. It's all about biomechanics and timing. So you need to efficiently use your kinetic chain, driving through the hip, then the torso, then the arm coming through, and you need to do that at the right time in relationship to the flight of the ball, so you can get as optimal a contact position as possible, which is going to be somewhere just a little bit out in front of the body. And because the biomechanics are the key, the preparation is the first place to start. Like, I think people understand the importance of racket head speed on other ground strokes, but they don't think about it in the same way with a slice. But the racket head speed is really important, so you've got to make sure that you're preparing properly, loading your body properly, so then you can turn yourself into a whip to then create the racket head speed. Because just like with all the other strokes, we want racket head speed, but we don't want to be physically doing it as hard as we can, because if we really try and exert physical force, we tend to be less accurate and less coordinated, and we tend to miss more. So we want racket head speed from efficiency of the kinetic chain. So in terms of the preparation, there's going to be a few keys. Getting a good upper body unit turn and rotation, and taking the racket up high. Now, in terms of upper body rotation, I tend to rotate more on my slice backhand than I do on my other shots. So for my other shots, I tend to go to maybe 90 degrees. I'm working on trying to increase it, but for my slice backhand, I'm always way past 90 degrees. So if 90 degrees is there, I try and rotate my chest much further than that as I take my racket nice and high. And depending on the type of slice, sometimes it'll be higher, sometimes it'll be wrapped more around my head. That will vary a little bit, but it's going to be high with a solid upper body rotation and really loading the back and outside hip. All shots in tennis are about the back or outside hip. The slice is going to be exactly the same. So left-handed, I'm loading my right leg. For a right-hander, we're going to be loading the left leg. And by loading, I mean stepping out onto it, the leg's a little bit bent, and I'm rotating into it. So thinking about my belly button going into my hip. So I'm twisting, and I can't twist any more this way because I've got a stretch in my glutes and a stretch in the external rotators, because I'm then going to be using those muscles to drive into the stroke. So whatever the movement to the ball, if I'm moving out to a wide ball, the final step that I'll take, I'm finalizing that unit turn and rotating, loading into that hip, so then I can step across and drive through the hip to initiate the swing. If I'm just moving forwards to a ball that's in front of me, maybe I have to step across like that, but it's still the same thing. That final step, rotating, getting the preparation, and then hitting through. So the preparation is absolutely crucial. And then it's just about the timing. It's about turning your body into a whip. So just like all of your other strokes, you're going to be driving through that back hip to initiate the swing. The torso kicks in after that, and then you slice down and through. If you look at the contact point, it's normally a fairly steep angle of contact. A lot of people are too open on the slice, but for a penetrating slice, it'll vary a little bit, but it's generally a fairly aggressive steep angle that we're going to need. Just like when you're hitting a forehand with topspin, it's kind of the reverse of that angle. So maybe I hit my forehand like that. With the slice, I'm going to have maybe the opposite of that. Okay? And just turning your body into a whip. And it's something that you really have to experiment with. Like, you have to get out there with the partner or with the ball machine or someone feeding you balls, and you just have to get used to thrashing. No, don't thrash at the ball. Turning your body into a whip, get used to the racket head speed and think it through. You know, if you're doing this aggressively and the ball is sailing out over the back fence, then obviously the angle of your racket face was too open. So you need to stay being aggressive, and you just need to think about closing the racket face more on contact. And me saying that isn't going to change it for you. You just have to do repetitions thinking it through. So, you know, when you get the good ones and it's a real biting slice, kind of remember that feeling. If it sails out over the back fence, don't sacrifice the speed. Don't go timid and go, right, I obviously need to be more gentle with it. Maintain the racket head speed, but just kind of think through it. Okay, it's about the angle of the racket face. And one thing that really helps with that is getting a forwards lean and getting your body into the ball. Again, I think a lot of people are kind of more upright. On the slice, I like to really get over that front leg. So I've rotated, I've loaded the left leg, but then as I step into the front leg, I've got a body lean, and I'm thinking about coming down on it from there. I never think about my follow through, never have done. I know sometimes I follow through and it comes up. Sometimes if I'm really trying to just chop at the ball, you see that a lot from Federer, it just kind of go in there and the racket stops at that point. But I don't really think about the follow through. What I think about is making sure I've loaded properly, thinking about the contact, trying to get that in as optimal a position as possible, trying to keep my head still through contact to try and raise the level of consistency. And that is all I think about. I guess one final thing to mention is maybe what's happening with the back leg, or the leg after you've made contact. So after you've hit the shot, often the other leg is going to pivot round, and then that's going to allow you to recover. So that's something to factor in as well. But that's what I consider to be the anatomy of the slice backhand. And I think the big thing is really that initial phase. It's the loading phase, it's preparing properly, it's getting that done in time. A lot of players just simply aren't ready in time, they're not loaded, and because of that, they're not able to hit a good quality slice. So yes, we want to turn the body into a whip, we want that nice quality contact, we want to keep our head still at contact, but again, after seeing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of players play, often the preparation of the first part isn't sufficient, and that prevents them from getting the second part. So you've got to kind of prioritize your time, working on whatever the underlying thing is that's holding you back. And for most players, obviously not all players, but most players, it's the preparation and the initial loading phase. So hopefully that has been useful to you in terms of understanding the technique more. It's a case of getting out there and practicing. But something that I also highly recommend that you work on is training and improving your skill. That's something that I spend quite a bit of time doing myself. Like, on-court practice is obviously very important, but we can only play at the level that our bodies will allow us to play. And for the vast majority of players, they don't ever end up getting to the level of tennis they want to because they're not skillful enough. Their visual processing isn't good enough, so they can't read the flight of the ball effectively. They're not coordinated enough, and because of that, they can't implement high-level techniques. So I spend time training my vision, working on my coordination, and that's what's enabled me to get to the point I'm at with my left hand in a relatively short space of time. So that's what I highly recommend all other players do as well. If you'd like to learn how to use brain-based training to improve your skill, I've made a class that's going to teach you about it. It's basically going to lay out the approach that I've used to become a 4.5 player with my left hand. So I'll place a link to it up there, and I'll place a link down in the description so that you can watch that if you're interested. If you have any questions about the technique and the things that I've gone through today, I'd love you to leave a comment down below and I'll get back to you as quick as I can. If you have found the video helpful, it's awesome if you could give me a thumbs up. And again, if you haven't subscribed to my channel before, it's always much appreciated if you could do that as well. Okay, I'll catch you next time.